Hello, I'm Marina Kim and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. On Thursday, the overthrown president of Kyrgyzstan, Kurmanbek Bakiyev, has left Jalalabad on a military plane. Kaztag news agency later reported that Bakiyev and his entourage landed in Taras airport in Kazakhstan. According to the official representative of the Internal Affairs Ministry, Askar Abdurrahmanov, the agreement to allow Bakiyev leave Kyrgyzstan was reached due to joint efforts of Presidents Nursultan Nazarbayev, Barack Obama and Dmitry Medvedev. The ministry representative did not specify any further details or plans of the Kyrgyz president. After the revolution on April 7th, Bakiyev was removed from power and until Thursday remained in southern Kyrgyzstan among a small group of supporters. Now to the news in the capital of Kazakhstan. The picket of shared construction interest holders in Astana ended with a dialogue with the city's prosecutors. Although initially the authorities were reluctant about the talks, the voice of reason won in the end. More than 100 shared construction interest holders came to Astana's prosecutor's office without a prior notification. People demanded to meet with the leadership of the territorial supervisory authorities. The city deputy prosecutor Murat Muhamedkazi agreed to enter talks with protesters only in the absence of press. The interest holders, however, insisted on the presence of journalists and the dialogue was finally resumed. Protesters asked the supervisory authorities to suspend the transfer of their apartments, being not content with the government's decision, according to which participants of shared construction with more than one apartment will lose their second property. The prosecutor promised to review the demands. The deputy prosecutor promised to declare the postponement of the government regulations in the nearest future. The authorities will come up with something to stop the city administration from distributing our apartments. Activists of movements Leave Housing to People and Kazakhstan 2012 called the population to take part in protest actions in order to express openly their dissatisfaction with the government. Find out more from the next report. The authorized by the city administration meeting will be held on April 19th in the Almaty Park. The protest is organized for the victims of the financial crisis. Besides the co-investors and mortgage borrowers, for the first time the owners of retail outlets of the Jibek Jolly Bazaar will also participate in the action.
This is a test rally for evaluating the possibilities of mobilizing bazaar workers. Obviously, the consumer crisis has seriously hit this category of citizens, many of whom can no longer afford renting trade spaces, which leads to a bankruptcy of thousands of small businesses.
The organizers say that their rally will be peaceful and have the purpose of consolidating protest groups. Nevertheless, they also warn about possible provocations. The appeal is addressed to all opposition parties and associations. At the same time, the parliament is considering a new bill which prohibits extrajudicial mortgage sale during borrower fallout. The regulation will not affect the already sold housing, said the bill developers from the Financial Supervision Agency. After the introduction of amendments, banks will no longer be able to change certain contract conditions unilaterally. Almost 4,500 extrajudicial mortgage deals have been initiated in Kazakhstan as of the beginning of this year. According to the data of the prosecutor's office, the Internal Affairs Ministry is the most corrupt official body in Kazakhstan, constituting a quarter of all reported corruption crimes. Over the past 3 months, 10 administration heads of different levels, a judge, several fiscal policemen, customs officials and even some rescuers ended up on the blacklist of corrupt officials. Their names are not revealed by the committee. Moreover, since the beginning of the year, public prosecution has reported about more than 600 instances of illegal inspections of Kazakh businessmen. The violations were committed mostly by sanitary and epidemiology authorities as well as representatives of the emergency and internal affairs ministries. The committee chairman Marat Ahmedjanov says that the most common way of preventing crimes accountability is still their concealment from registration or illegal refusal to initiate criminal proceedings.
The achievements in this field were obtained in part due to the real-time access to distance accounting documents for the registering of crimes and statistics. This issue was previously underestimated. The conditions of stay for external and internal migrants are taken under special control in Kazakhstan. Respective amendments have been already introduced to the bill on migration. Moreover, on Thursday, the Foreign Ministry announced the abolition of the registration-free regime for the citizens of Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan.
Kazakh parliament is reviewing the bill to toughen the rules of the movement within the country for both foreigners and citizens. The document's developers explained their initiative, citing various arguments.
Some of repatriates come here to receive money and then go back to their countries, just like in case with Uzbek Kazakhs.
If the bill is passed, a resident of one region of Kazakhstan will not be able to stay in another for more than 15 days without registration. In case of the rules violation, he will face a fine of up to $300. Human rights activist Mahambet Abjan calls this measure draconian and legally incompetent, as the 21st article of the Constitution guarantees everyone the freedom of movement.
Let's say tomorrow I'm going to Karaganda. In the past I could stay there for 3 months without no problems. But now I have to think in advance my permit to avoid dealing with the police.
Simultaneously with the development of this legislation, the regulations for the stay of citizens from the neighboring countries have been toughened as well. Kazakh Foreign Ministry stated that now the citizens of Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan have to register in the immigration police within 5 days of their arrival.
From now on, the registration-free stay in Kazakhstan for citizens of the Kyrgyz Republic and Tajikistan for up to 90 and 30 days, respectively, is no longer active.
This has nothing to do with politics and recent events in Kyrgyzstan, says the Foreign Ministry. Instead, the measures are explained with economic reasons, like Kazakhstan's entry into the customs union.
Meanwhile, lawmakers suggest reviving and tightening the almost forgotten since the Soviet-era system of residence permits. At the same time, experts say that the amendments proposed by the Labor Ministry contradict not only existing legislation, but even common sense.
On Wednesday, the mayor of Almaty, Ahmedjan Yesimov, talked about the necessity to restore the system of residence permits. According to the official, additional measures are needed for the regulation of the internal migration flow in Almaty, given the special status of the city. One of such measures is the compulsory registration of all arrivals. It is unlikely, however, that this will not likely to stop the influx of migrants, and rather create new corruption opportunities for officials and the police. In the present system, this will inevitably lead to corruption. It will be easier for migrants to give a bribe rather than pay for the registration. A real stalemate with illegal internal migration is observed in the notorious Almaty district of Shanrak, where the majority of residents do not have any official documents allowing them to live and work in the city. The EU has allocated more than 200,000 euros to Kazakhstan for the implementation of the 2-year project Shanrak, Our Common Home. This program is aimed at solving the problems associated with internal migration of Kazakh population. There are several approaches to the matter.
Any arriving person could have been issued a migration pass granting access to medical care, social benefits and pensions. Instead, the authorities are using restricting measures to decrease the flow of internal migrants.
Frederick Emmerich is a Canadian professor who teaches journalism in Almaty. He does not even understand fully the very concept of a residence permit or registration. In his country, people can live in any city without notifying the police or any other officials.
There are different forms that government finds out where people are, but there are no requirements that limit where somebody can live and require advanced registration to live there. And personally, I don't know of other places that do this.
The city registration permit is not very common around the world. Nevertheless, Kazakh authorities insist on rupturing to the Soviet roots.
The President and Prime Minister believe that there should be control everywhere, which of course allows them to know everything about their citizens.
The mechanism of controlling migration within the country is quite complex. However, the crackdown in the form of the introduction of registration will not produce any positive results. After all, it is clearly stated in the Constitution that all citizens have the freedom of movement within the country. It seems that the amendments to the law on migration will contradict to the main law of Kazakhstan.